This is Beretta 80X Cheetah versus Sig P365 380 versus Ruger Security 380, a comparison. This video was filmed at the beautiful Banner shooting range. It was a little warm and humid today, so luckily we don't have much background noise to contend with. And now, let's hit the range. We'll start with the P365 380 because I haven't shot that in a while. We will do then the Security 380 and finish with the 80X Cheetah. I know there might only be 10 rounds in most of the magazines today. Kind of feels like maybe 12 and 10. Anyway, we'll just roll with it. We're going to do P365 380 at the bottom left target. We'll do the Security 380 at the bottom right target. We'll do the Beretta 80X at the top left-hand target. Well, let's start out shooting at the center bullseye here. We'll just do 2 magazines and see how we can do. We're going to judge based on reliability and accuracy here today. Pretty decent group out there. A couple of those low ones, that was just me. I tend to forget if it's the combat sights or the whatever the other one's called, but I always forget the name of it this moment where I talk about it. Okay, I guess we only had 6 in that one. Okay, let's do our Security 380 now. I think we have 10 and 15. I think we were shooting... I have no idea what that ammo was, I'll be honest. This is CCI Blazer aluminum, or Blazer powder by CCI. I always call it CCI Blazer, but I don't think it's actually, I think it's a separate company. Anyway, here we go. Security 380, bullseye on the bottom right target. Okay, now we should have 15 in this magazine. A little humid out here today. I think it's going to rain here any moment now. Got rain in the forecast. Oops, there we go. Should be 15 in this one. Okay, the sights are definitely a little different. One of them is combat sights. The other one is the other sights whose name I always forget. But pretty decent group if you ignore the fact that I was trying to figure that out. Well, let's move on to our Beretta here. I think these have 12, maybe 10. 10 in each, I think. Top left-hand target now. Do our first shot, double action. Okay, Beretta is so far winning in terms of accuracy, in terms of the prettiness of the group on paper. But our reliability so far on all three firearms, like always, has been excellent. Here we go. Next 10. First shot will be double action again. That Beretta's putting a tough group to compete with out there. Looking at our first set of targets today, I'm going to consider the 80X and the P365 targets a wash. The Security 380 target may be slightly worse, though I think for all three firearms, certainly plenty accurate enough for home defense, concealed carry, personal protection purposes, in my not an expert opinion. With the three firearms we are looking at today, all chambered in 380 ACP, if you squint and you kind of look from a distance, it's easy to think they are very similar firearms, though I think there are features of each one that sets them apart from the other. And let's begin to dive into those features now. To start that discussion, let's first take a look at the Sig P365 380 against the Beretta 80X Cheetah. While we have reviewed each of these firearms in the past, we are going to dive into some numbers for our newer viewers. The Beretta 80X Cheetah is a single action, double action, external hammer fired pistol chambered in 380 ACP. It is 6.8 inches long, 4.9 inches high, 1.4 inches wide, and weighs in at 25 ounces unloaded. The firearm has a aluminum alloy frame, a steel alloy slide and barrel, with the barrel being 3.9 inches in length. The Sig P365 380 is a micro compact double stack firearm chambered in 380 ACP. It is a striker fired firearm. It is 5.8 inches long, 4.2 inches high, 1 inch wide, and weighs in at 15.7 ounces unloaded. The firearm has a 3.1 inch carbon steel barrel with a stainless steel slide that has the nitron finish with a polymer grip frame. Before we get into our comparison shots, it's easy to see, in my opinion, based on the numbers, that the P365 is a class down in size compared to our 80X Cheetah. Though keep in mind here for our comparison shots that I'm going to be using the Sig P365 380 with the XL grip, which is how I prefer the setup from Sig on this P365 firearm. It's an extremely customizable firearm, though I will mention that all the firearms we're shooting here today are in what I would consider their stock configuration, so we don't piss off YouTube. With the P365 380 on top of the 80X Cheetah, one noticeable right out the gate is the longer slide and the longer barrel of the 80X Cheetah. Though also keep in mind that the XL grip makes this grip, I would say, much more similar in length compared to what you would have with a traditional P365 setup when compared to our Cheetah in terms of grip length. With the 80X on top of the P365 380, the P365 380 virtually disappears, which makes sense with it being technically down a class in size. The from the grip view, I think, further cements the notion that the 80X is a size up. We can see it's a longer in the grip, it's a little fatter. All around, it's just a little bigger firearm. And finally, the top-down view of these firearms reinforces that Cheetah a little wider, longer barrel, longer slide. Besides the differences in height, width, length, I think the biggest difference here, besides striker fired versus external hammer fired, single action, double action hammer fired, would be weight. The 80X Cheetah at over 25 ounces is more than 10 ounces heavier than what the P365 380 is. That's actually quite a lot of weight difference between two similar sized firearms, in my opinion. Let's move on now to our next comparison in this. Now we're going to take a look at the 80X Cheetah against the Ruger Security 380. These should be much more similar in size, given that they are both compact double-stack 380 firearms. Another mentionable here is we have previously in our Security 380 series done a direct comparison between the Security 380 and the P365 380. We are going to omit that from this video, but we'll link to that one for those who want to see that. The Ruger Security 380 is a compact double-stack firearm chambered in 380 ACP. It is internal hammer fired. It has Ruger's secure action trigger, which I think is sort of a hybrid between a single action and a double action trigger in my not an expert opinion. The Security 380 is 6.52 inches long, 4.25 inches high, 1.02 inches wide, and weighs in at 19.7 ounces unloaded. Looking at our comparison shots, with the Security 380 on top of the 80X Cheetah, and the 80X Cheetah virtually disappears. In similar fashion, with the 80X Cheetah on top of the Security 380, and the Security 380 virtually disappears. Looking at the from the grip view, we can see these two firearms are much more similar in width than the Cheetah and the P365 380 were, though the Cheetah is probably still slightly wider, visually even, than our Security 380 is. Looking at the from the top down view, we can see these are, again, very similar in length, though the 80X Cheetah slightly longer in length, little longer barrel. Before we get into some of the other major differences between these three firearms, let's head back to the range for a quick defensive ammo test. Okay, for this next test, what we're going to do is we're going to fire 10 shots of Sierra Outdoor Master. This is a 90 grain jacketed hollow point. We're going to do 10 shots from each firearm, shooting at the bottom right of the targets. We'll start again with our Sig P365 380. Then we will do our Ruger Security 380, and then finish off with the Beretta 80X. 10 shots, bottom right of each target, starting with our Sig. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to call that, for me, an excellent group. I pulled one a little low, but all of them are, that's a very nice group out there for me. I could do that all day and I would struggle to shoot that same group again. Let's see if we can replicate it now with the Security 380 at the bottom right-hand target. Okay, and what we see is that ammo shoots a little low. I have a few shots that are just below the paper. An okay group, nowhere near as good as from our P365 380. Okay, here we go. Beretta 80X at the top left-hand target, the bottom right corner of that top left-hand target. First shot will be double action. Here we go. Oh, 10. That's only 8. Okay, that group would have probably been better if I didn't stop abruptly at 8. But not half bad. Looking at our targets one more time here, while I think the hits on the P365 look prettier on paper, I'm going to call the groups equivalent. What we see here, in my opinion, the difference between them is I have a hard time between the firearms keeping track of the combat sights versus 6 o'clock low target sights. And so sometimes it takes me a few shots to be like, oh, okay, this one is the combat sights, or this one is the 6 o'clock low sights, and vice versa. If any of these were my carry gun, obviously I would know that and not need to worry about it. But because I'm switching back and forth between all three, that's a problem for me. That's a me thing, not a representation of how these firearms perform in that regard. All three are more than sufficiently accurate at home defense, personal protection, concealed carry ranges. Let's move on. Don't forget to like and subscribe so Freddy gets his biscuits. We have reached the conclusion to another video. Let us first tackle the biggest elephant in the room, price. As someone who prefers to shop local, I'm going to use prices I found during my weekly gun store circuit, not the best prices you may or may not find on the inner tubes. Where I live, the Beretta 80X Cheetah is by far the most expensive of the 3 firearms we fired today. At the stores I went to that had at least 2 of the 3, including the Cheetah, I could have purchased 2 of either the P365 380 or the Security 380 and had money left over. That's big. Other than brand loyalists, most consumers will naturally ask, is the 80X Cheetah twice as good at that price point? That's a good question, and in my honest opinion, it's going to be probably not, but it depends. For your average consumer, the one who is in that 99% who buys a firearm and maybe 2 boxes ammo to go with it, the one who shoots maybe one of those 2 boxes at the range at some point and probably keeps that second box for protection. Is the 80X twice as good? No. At home defense, personal protection, concealed carry ranges, the difference in accuracy between these 3 firearms, even for a professional shooter, is probably insignificant. Some days I shoot better groups with the Ruger, other days the Beretta, and as we saw today, others the Sig. But on all those days, as with today, those groups were more than sufficient. In even a minimally practiced hand, any of these firearms will be more than potent. That is one of the beautiful aspects of this round John Moses Browning created. It is a mild recoiling, accurate round that has stopping power behind it. Keyboard warriors are quick to shit on 380 from the comfort of their couch, but none of them are volunteering to stand staring down the business end, with good reason. Note, I'm not recommending you stare down the business end of 380. Don't do that. I shouldn't have to give a dumb warning like this, but it's YouTube. So for YouTube's sake, 380 is absolutely capable of doing lethal damage. Moving back to the topic on hand, are there individuals who I think will benefit from spending that extra money on the 80X? Absolutely. One area where I think the 80X does win is in accuracy. Not at what I'd necessarily call personal protection range, but nonetheless, I think there is an advantage there. Is that firearm or sight related? I'm not so sure. Of the 3 firearms we looked at today, all 3 have different factory sights, and those sights do come into play here. The Sig P365 380 has a 3-dot tritium night sight setup. As far as personal protection, home defense, concealed carry purposes, of these 3 firearms, I prefer these sights the most. I think they are the most versatile. They are easy to see in all light conditions and are more than accurate enough for personal protection, home defense ranges one might encounter. The Ruger Security 380 has an anti-glare rear sight with a high visibility fiber optic front sight. Shooting in daytime conditions, I like this sight, but one thing I will say is that while it is extremely easy to see, the large size of the dot can affect pinpoint accuracy, especially at longer ranges.
The 80X Cheetah has what I'd consider the most Spartan of the sights that we have looked at on the three firearms today. It has a plain 3 white dot sight setup. There are no frills, no fiber optics, no tritium, just 3 white dot sights. While they are not as visible in full bright as the Rugers, not as visible at night like the Sigs, one thing they do have in their favor is they are very accurate and precise sights. The small dots on the factory sights I find make it a much easier firearm to make a longer distance shot with. Your sights don't cover up your target as much. Speaking of a longer distance shot, let's take a moment to look at a couple shots we did recently with the 80X, like hitting a 12-inch gong at 100 yards.
You know, I'm like, really? You know?
Got it in our first shot.
And now let's look at another shot. This is a 50-yard shot, and really what we're looking at here is just how awesome that double action trigger is. Hitting that target at 50 yards with a double action trigger, I think speaks volumes of how good the double action trigger on this Cheetah actually is. I've said it in every video with good reason.
Now let's see if we can hit it at all with the Cheetah. We should be able to. We hit the 100-yard gong last week. Here we go. First shot will be double action.
Now at longer ranges like that, the combination of more precise sights plus a very good single action, double action trigger make the 80X much easier to successfully hit your target in my experience. If you're someone who plans on having fun at the range with your 380 and wants to engage targets at and past 25 yards, the extra cost of the 80X Cheetah and what that affords, I think it make it a more attractive choice if it fits your budget. At what I consider concealed carry, personal protection distances, I think that is a harder boat to row. 5 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards, you get the idea. Do I notice an appreciable difference between the groups of these three firearms? No. Let's take a moment to discuss optics ready since we're talking about sights. Both the P365 380 and the Beretta 80X Cheetah are optics ready from the manufacturer. One big advantage the Sig has here is it can support some optics like the HoloSun 507K without needing a plate. From what I've seen so far, no matter what optics you choose, you'd need an optics plate with the 80X Cheetah. Currently, there is not an optics ready out the box Security 380 on the market, but with Ruger now offering their own micro red dot made for things like the Micro 9, it wouldn't surprise me if in the near future we see a Security 380 optics ready for this Ruger Ready Dot optic. Moving on. Another interesting observation we have after shooting these three firearms side by side is, at least in our opinion, if we ranked these three firearms in terms of lowest to highest felt recoil, the ranking would be as follows: P365 380, Security 380, 80X Cheetah. This is likely to surprise people, given how much heavier the 80X is compared to the others. Now don't get us wrong, we're not saying the 80X has bad recoil or is punishing in the hand. We're merely saying, of the three, the 80X had the most felt recoil. Had we not shot these three firearms side by side multiple times now, we would have said there was no noticeable difference. However, having now shot them side by side a few times, we can say there is a slight but perceptible difference. It is a hard sensation to articulate, but I'd describe it as the 80X has a quicker, sharper feeling recoil compared to the other two. It is a very subtle difference that is only noticeable in my opinion when firing the firearms side by side. All in all, do I think the 80X Cheetah is twice as good as the Sig P365 380 or the Ruger Security 380? Nay, nay. Do I think all three are excellent choices? Without a doubt. All three of these firearms have had excellent reliability and accuracy. They are easy to carry, easy to shoot, and easy to maintain. While there are some major differences between them, price aside, are those differences enough to make a difference to your average consumer? Probably not. All three are excellent choices. Aside from price again, and action, The biggest difference I see in the performance of these firearms is the sights. With all three having replaceable sights, anybody interested in one likely will be able to find sights they prefer if they are not the stock sights, though some of those sights will be easier to find than others. For those who are into customization, the Sig will probably be far more customizable. For those who want something they can easily hit targets beyond the traditional notions of what a 380 range is, the 80X is probably the better choice. And for those who want a very mild recoil firearm with a very easy to manipulate slide and easy to see factory sights, the Ruger is probably the better choice. Which of these three you gravitate towards will be very heavily dependent on your personal preferences and needs, like with most things. Well, anyway, we hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good day.